And Katherine is the founder and owner of a yoga studio called Chikitsa Yoga here locally in Richardson. It's kind of like my local yoga center. And we've known each other for many years. My son, when Gabriel was very young, did some of his first yoga at Katherine's studio. And her studio is always a really inviting, warm, and beautiful place to be, to do yoga. And Katherine's also Ayurvedic. She has a passion for Ayurvedic healing. She's a consultant and a practitioner. And so it's such a joy to have Katherine on to share some of her wisdom with us. I would say two of her really powerful gifts are her commitment to helping others to become more aware, to awaken through yoga and through her life example. And the other would be for wellness, to help others in their transformation to greater wellness. And so Katherine is lovely, both inside and out. And I'll give it to you now, Katherine, to share some with our group.
Well, thank you. That was very nice, Jonathan. And I wish I got to see you in person more often. I miss you. It is indeed true what he said. The connection is so strong every time I'm around him. It's like, you know, what am I going to do with that? But anyway, I live in the Dallas area, and I am a studio owner. That's true, and I teach yoga classes here at the studio. But I have been transitioning just over the years into more Ayurvedic healthcare. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. And I'm just curious what people even know about that. Is it part of your world? Is it in your wheelhouse? You know, is it part of your daily routine? Like, do you know what it is even? Like, I think we should maybe start there. And if you don't want to unmute yourself, you can maybe just put a chat in the chat box, or raise your hand if you know what Ayurveda is. I see it. I like the hand in the galaxy. Okay. And so some people know what it is, and some people not so much. Does for those of you who know what it is, do you know what your constitutional makeup is? Have you ever heard of that? No. Oh, okay, good. Okay, Deborah, do you know your Prakruti? Like, could you tell me what it is, or are you that well versed, or maybe you're a healer too in that modality?
I'm not a healer in that modality. A friend of mine practices Ayurvedic medicine, and I've used different formulas over the years for healing.
Neat. Okay, good.
I don't remember that like that
term. Okay. Well, then let's just talk about briefly what it is, and then even whether you know a lot about it or absolutely nothing, how you might just use it going forward starting tonight. Okay. What I like about Ayurveda is its overall intention. It has a really beautiful purpose, if you will. And so maybe you subscribe to this idea already that every single one of us is embodied in this body in this lifetime to express a very unique purpose. And it's very unique to you, and only you can express it in the way that you can. So not only is your purpose unique, but how you express it is unique too. And it's very, very special, and it's very, very important. So all Ayurveda wants for you is to have the health that you need to be able to express your purpose fully, daily, or at least like in this lifetime. And so whenever our health gets in the way, it stops us, or it keeps us from expressing that. And if you've ever had even just like a snippet of when you are kind of fulfilling your purpose and you just feel really aligned, probably you experience really deep joy, really deep contentment, and just really deep satisfaction, you know? And so what a wonderful gift. So all Ayurveda wants is, let's get you well enough so that you can express your purpose, right? And so that is its mission. Um, and so, you know, having said that, the thing about, you know, us, and even those of us who are like maybe, you know, really awake and have spiritual practices and really understand this idea that we're kind of these spiritual beings having this, you know, stuck in a physical realm, right? um the bummer is like, no matter what, like, you're stuck in a body. So that's sort of like your plight, you know, you're stuck in a body. And so, you know, the better you can take care of it, you know, and the more motivated you are, how about that? um then just the more ease you have and the more flow you'll experience, and the better, you know, the better able you'll be able to optimize like this night. I mean, your body's awesome. And I would encourage everyone to think about, like, you know, not like, oh, I'm stuck in this body that sometimes doesn't work, or sometimes hurt, or sometimes has pain, or sometimes gets sick, or whatever it is. And instead, like, oh, I'm so lucky to have this body because it is my vehicle. It's my vehicle to do whatever it is I'm supposed to do. And whenever we start thinking of it that way, then it's like, okay, if I know that I want my vehicle to take me, you know, across Earth, you know, or to another galaxy, it needs to be in pretty tip-top shape, right? And so I'm gonna do what I need to do to take care of it so that it lasts me for that journey. Yeah, so that it serves me, so I don't run out of fuel, and you know, I don't run out of prana, or I don't run out of inspiration. Because I think that's really what happens is when we start getting sick, or we start, you know, not feeling that great, or our body hurts, and it passes over into our mind and into our emotions, then we don't necessarily have that inspiration that we need to like keep going, you know, keep going and keep fulfilling your purpose. Because each one of us, it's almost like we're each a little cog in this enormous wheel that's, you know, round and round and round and round. And it's just kind of, we're a very important part of this whole big fabric, right? So having said all of that, the neat thing about Ayurveda is it wants you to understand that you're not separate from nature. So you're not separate from nature at all. In fact, you are nature. So as soon as we start, you know, understanding that I'm not separate from the big vast ocean, or the sky, or a tree outside, or a bird that's flying by, or a mosquito, or whatever, you know, whatever it is, a rock formation, like I am part of that. Then it's like you're just by setting that intention, by understanding and acknowledging and maybe allowing that mindset to be part of your just part of your wheelhouse, then you can start to utilize nature for your own healing. Yeah. And so that's what Ayurveda wants you to do. And so Ayurveda is like, if yoga is trying to help us yoke your small self or your ego self to your divine self, then Ayurveda is simply trying to yoke your being, your existence to nature itself. To understand that like we're all so connected. Yeah. And the beauty of that is once you do that, and it's like, I'm not separate from the bird, and I'm not separate from the sky, and I'm not separate from the sun, and like all of us are part of one another, then we can use it for our healing. And so Ayurveda uses aspects of nature for healing. So let's say that something does go wrong, and that maybe you have an illness that actually has a name. You know, Ayurveda is going to use something from nature, like plants, you know, or a herb. And it's gonna, the herb you're gonna introduce into your body in some way, like whether it's topical, or you swallow it, or it's aromatherapy and you breathe it in. And what that does, all it does for you is reawaken a part of you that fell asleep. And so if you're taking whatever, so maybe a popular a popular ashwagandha or Ayurveda herb is ashwagandha. Have you guys heard of that one? You heard of ashwagandha? Yeah. Is that one of your formula by any chance? Okay, good. And so that one, I hear a lot, like a lot of people will ask me about that one. But the plant, so tapping into the healing energy of a plant. So in whichever, whatever form you bring it into your existence or your being, all that is doing is just reminding you that you have the power to heal yourself. It's reminding your body, oh yeah, my kidney, it used to be able to filter just fine. My kidney knows how to filter just fine. Somewhere along the way, I got separated from that fact and I allowed my kidney to stop working well. And the plant, plant medicine comes along and reawakens that for you. And so it's a really beautiful way to think of Ayurvedic medicine, as opposed to like the allopathic approach is to take a pharmaceutical, which is going to be man-made, right? And usually what a pharmaceutical does is it'll kill something in your body, it'll replace a function in your body, or it'll interrupt a process. And so Ayurvedic medicine, it doesn't want to do that. It wants to remind you, like, wow, I'm actually rather powerful. Wow, my body can actually do this. And so, a good Ayurvedic doctor or practitioner is going to give you the herbs or whatever remedy you need only for as long until your whatever tissue or organ or function in your body remembers. It remembers what it's supposed to do and it starts doing it on its own. And so, once really we all deserve to have that type of health, and we all deserve, for every single little compartment within our body, which is not a compartment because it's all connected, to be fully awake. So as awake as you are spiritually, let's just say that, every little aspect within your physical being can be that awake also. And so, and if any part of you has forgotten, and so let's just say you get allergies seasonally, or you're prone to getting colds, or there is an organ that's not working tip top for you, then you take something and then it remembers how to do it. It becomes empowered again and powerful because it's as infinite as you are, right? And it's that powerful. And then voila, you don't have to take that herb anymore, and all is well. So that's that. So that's kind of how Ayurveda works in a nutshell. But then there's another side to it. So that's like when something goes wrong, like when something goes wrong, go see an Ayurvedic practitioner, a doctor, and that's how that person is going to help you heal. Yeah. And they're helping you heal in a very natural, holistic way. And so that's what's so beautiful about it. And I think, in this day and age, I think people are starting to be like, oh, wow, I can take a pharmaceutical and it'll give me relief for a little while, and it'll help me feel better, and it'll, whatnot. But then it might cause this other problem over here in this compartment. You take something for this compartment and now it causes a problem over here, or it causes a problem over here. And then now you have to take something else, and then, it just becomes this like snowball of a thing. And so we don't want to do that. But what Ayurveda wants to remind everybody is you're incredibly powerful, and everybody has the power to heal, and everybody has the power to feel wonderful until your very last breath. So that's when you're not well. Now, when you're well, then you have this tiny little like dilemma, okay? Because you're this precious little chemistry set that's constantly responding to the environment outside of you and then to the environment inside of you. And so just like you have a really unique purpose to fill while you're alive and in this lifetime, you have a very unique constitutional makeup, yeah? Everybody's different. I mean, it's very rare that somebody's the same. So even though there are 3 elements that go into your constitutional makeup, you can have 2 people with the exact same percentages, if you will, and they'll look entirely different. They'll sound entirely different. Their ailments will be entirely different. Like, so trust me when I say that you are extremely unique. And so there's no medicine for the masses with Ayurveda. There's no general prescription that's going to work for everybody. And my favorite thing that we joke about, or we used to joke about in Ayurveda school, was if somebody asks a question, the answer is, it depends. It depends. Because you're unique, you know, none of you in this group is going to have the same reaction to whatever, you know, we give you. So anyway, so those 3 elements that kind of make you you, the trick is that you have them in different amounts, yeah? So the 3 elements, you've maybe heard of them, they're called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And so we call those dosha, yeah? And there's no translation to English for that particular word, but some people call it a force. Some people call it an energy. I do like to think of it of a force. And so Vata governs the force of movement, Pitta governs the force of transformation, and then Kapha governs the force of like holding steady. And so you all need all 3 of those forces, and we all have that. So there's constantly movement happening in our body, whether it's peristalsis, our heart beating, our eyes blinking, breathing, like movements, you know, moving your limb. So movement, yeah, and then transformation. Anytime you process anything, whether it's something that you eat or something that you're learning and something that you're witnessing, you know, transformation, yeah, from one thing to another, transforming food into tissue or whatever it is. And then, you know, holding. And so there's like this holding or binding force, yeah, and it's sort of what kind of keeps you in one big self-contained unit, yeah, and that's Kapha's job. So some of us have a whole lot of one and then less of the other 2. So it's really, really rare that somebody comes along and has 33.33% of the movement force, 33.33% of the transform force, and then 33.33% of the binding force or holding force. So some of us have a lot of the binding and holding. And these people, they tend to be like really steady, accountable, stable, they're strong, they're usually pretty healthy, they have good endurance, their metabolism's kind of slow, but steady, yeah? And they're very kind of loyal, loving, generous people. So that's that. Then the energy or the force of transformation, that one's called Pitta. When person has a whole lot of that, and then the other 2, they just tend to have a lot of fire. They have a lot of heat. Their go-to emotion is probably one of anger, but they're great at like processing large amounts of information. They're usually good leaders. Whenever they have ailments, it usually is some type of heat, like heat in their GI. But they're like bright, like they're really, really bright, you know, and they're philosophical, they're deep thinkers. And I don't know what else to say about that one. Then there's the other force, or the first force I mentioned, that's the one of movement. And these people, they tend to be really light in weight, and they tend to be kind of wiry framed. They talk really fast, they talk a lot. They are very creative, they're on the go, they're always moving, their body's always moving. Anyway, so we all have all 3. So maybe I said something about all 3 where one description, like, well, I have that, you know, of course you do, because we all have all 3, but we tend to have one really strong one. That's how most of us are. So the person who's perfectly even amongst the 3 is a rare bird, rare bird. And so this is the second part of Ayurveda. Because you have this special constitution, it's going to respond differently to the food that you put in, and it's going to respond differently to the environment around you. So the person who's moving, who's like constantly moving and they're governed by movement, they can't handle strong winds. They can't handle a big windy day. They can't handle a lot of stimulus, and they can't handle chaos, okay? And so when that's happening, whether it's a true weather pattern, you know, or it's the type of like maybe work environment that they're in, like it's a lot of hustle and bustle, that's gonna wear on them. Does that make sense? And so then the middle person who's like fire, yeah, and they're governed by like all this heat, you know, when it's really hot outside, it's gonna make them irritable. You know, they're if they're like in a kind of like chop environment where like things have to be just so and like on time and done right, but like that's just, it's the conditions to make them like more hot, you know, more angry. And so they're sensitive to that, yeah. And then the last one, this is like the brick house person. They tend to be kind of rigid, like they're great at holding steady and they're really strong, but they tend to not be very flexible. They don't like change. In fact, that really upsets them. And then, they're sensitive to that, and they're sensitive to the cold weather, and they're sensitive to like the rain. Yeah. So if it's a rainy, cloudy day outside, and they're just kind of sitting around inside and not really doing a whole lot, like not getting movement, they're just staying stuck, then that's going to cause them ailment. That's going to wear on them. So do you see how it kind of works? So, and just to sum it up, if you wanted to learn more about Ayurveda, the very first thing you want to do is like, well, who am I? Like, what's my makeup? How much do I have of each force? Because then what you can do is start learning, oh, I need to eat certain foods for this force if I want to stay strong, or if I want to stay healthy. Or I want to do these certain lifestyle elements so that, I don't wear myself out or burn myself up or get myself stuck, or whichever is your thing. And so Ayurveda is kind of neat because it treats you super individually, like super uniquely, and it calls for you to be really, really connected to yourself, and then really connected to your environment around you, because you're going to be sensitive to that. Yeah. And so how to optimize Ayurveda is like knowing yourself and then knowing what your constitution needs. So, if we were to use the car analogy, like, I don't know, like a Ferrari might need really high-end premium fuel. A hybrid car can use part fuel, part battery. And then whatever, a regular old like Honda Accord or something maybe just uses good old-fashioned unleaded gas. And so knowing what your vehicle needs so that you have the fuel that you need to optimize your health, so that your health doesn't get in the way of you expressing your purpose, that's all Ayurveda is. It's really that simple. So, is that helpful? Did you, yeah? Okay. Is that an okay overview? Yeah.
Awesome.
So might I suggest oh, thank you. So if you don't know, if you have any interest at all, if you're like, it's kind of like when when you're younger and you figure out, oh yeah, I was born in March, so I'm a Pisces. And then you start like reading your horoscope and it's like interesting. You start learning about your sun sign and you're like, wow, how do they know that about me? Well, Ayurveda is kind of different. You can go online and take a test. There are these free tests, all over the internet. And it'll ask you a slew of questions about like your physical structure and then like, your personality. And you answer it and then it'll spit out these results. And it'll be like, I'm X% Vata, or the movement force. I'm X% Pitta, or the fire force, the transformation force. And then I'm X% Kapha. And then now you kind of have what you need to start, to go from there. So it's your starting point. It's sort of like if you're orienting on the map, it's like you are here. and then you just go from there. So I think what I love about Ayurveda, for me personally, is since I've been kind of practicing it and living it, and now I use it to help people heal. I so rarely get sick, and my body weight used to fluctuate like 10 pounds this way, 5 pounds that way, 7 pounds this way, 3 pounds that way. It was like there was no equanimity there. And the same for like my moods, like I'd have bigger mood swings, I'd have more trouble sleeping, just things like this. And also I lacked a clear sense of purpose, or I wasn't in touch with my purpose. But now that I'm like, I understand Ayurveda and I know how to use it for my constitution, yeah, my weight has stayed. I've the same clothes for like the last 10 years. It's wonderful. I hardly ever get sick. I'm a human and all my emotions will, I experience the whole rainbow of them. But I tend to recover faster. It's like, an event happens and it doesn't wreck the show. So I would say if Ayurveda is giving me any type of gift at all, it's probably one of balance. It's one of balance. And you know, I feel like part of my purpose is to inspire people. That's part of my personal dharma. And I hope that I've maybe done just like a little of that today. Even just a little, that would be enough for me. But yeah, I feel most days lucky. I just feel lucky to be alive. And so it's a good place to be, you know? So anyway, that's Ayurveda in a nutshell.